So, hi everyone, welcome. So, the next lightning talk that we have is social media feeds and bias, and our speaker is Aishwarya Nair. Aishwarya is a data scientist at Trivago. So, she's working in the ranking and recommendation team. She enjoys the aspect of personalization and the process of building customer centric products. She enjoys meeting, interacting, and working with people from diverse backgrounds and cultures. When she travels around the world, she tries different cuisines and experiences culture through food. So, over to you, Aishwarya.
Thank you. As Soumya mentioned, I'm Aishwarya, in short, Aisha. That's my short name for saying for Aishwarya. And I work as a data scientist in Trivago in the search and ranking team, where we try to create optimal hotel ranking list for travelers worldwide. I'm very passionate about how recommendations work, and this is basically me trying to go around finding how social media feeds work, what kind of algorithms are used behind them to show recommendations to you, and a possibility that they could also introduce some kind of societal bias for the recommendations that they provide. And yeah, that's me in my natural habitat. So we'll start first with an icebreaker. If you can type in the chat, how many hours a day do you spend scrolling on social media? And what do you think is like an estimate that you spend time scrolling on social media and spending time? And I'll see your responses. I hope you guys can type in the chat. Okay, I see some responses. 3 to 4 hours on a weekend. I'm obviously asking this question because as a data person, I like to look at different kinds of data and see the distribution and see where I fit in this distribution. So I always try to see that as an average, where do I fit and how it is. Yeah, so YouTube is a social media. Any kind of thing that you entertain yourself, I would consider that as social media. 4 to 5 hours, 30 minutes. Okay, that's all really good. 1 hour. Okay, that's a nice average, because I think I also took out my averages, and this is something that you can also see for yourself on certain apps. This is on Instagram. You can check your time spent. On an average, I spent around 1 hour on social media, and this is the average times that I've seen. So basically, what are social media feeds? And so I think someone also asked, like, is YouTube considered social media? I would say yes, because for me, it is in various types and forms. Um, what I consider as a social media feed is not just photos and posts on Facebook and Instagram. It can be video recommendations on YouTube. It can also be Spotify recommendations of next songs, or what to buy next on Amazon, or even search recommendations on Google. That's all like kind of feeds or recommendations that you get on different kinds of social media platforms. And in my investigation of like how these recommendations are built, I was curious as to what motivates companies to have such feeds. Like, I get it that the companies want to keep users and retain users and have them on their product, using their product for a longer time. But what is the intrinsic motivation for a company to profit, or to have such social or have such recommendations or feeds? So for this, I look at different social media websites, or basically platforms which have recommendation, and try to see what kind of monetization do they look at. So first I look into shopping websites. So for example, Amazon or any other shopping website where you directly purchase something, the revenue model is very, very clear. It's a direct revenue model. When you try to buy something, their entire purpose is to recommend you something so that you purchase even more. For example, if you went to Amazon to buy a printer cartridge, and when you add this cartridge in your cart, you see a new recommendation to buy paper. And at first, you did not think of buying paper, but then when you added paper, you also see some recommendations of other stationery, which you think is like, of course, I would need them. And then you end up buying more than what you previously had thought of buying. So, this is their intrinsic motivation to show you recommendations to make you purchase more than what is required. In the same way, there are also content streaming platforms. Where the revenue model is quite clear. Like in Netflix, when you buy the subscription, the recommendation of what to watch next is free of cost. So there is no freemium model in them. But there are also content streaming platforms like Spotify or YouTube Premium, where there are certain part you can see for free, certain songs that you can see for free, and then there are ads which keep interrupting you and keep coming in between to show that your recommendations are being infiltrated by some kind of ads. And these companies then monetize on a subscription model. They ask you to buy the subscription to stop ads, and that's why you just end up buying the subscription to sorry, to avoid seeing the ads. So playing into this ad side, on the contrary, the social media websites for us, it's not very evident how they make money. It's not very visible where the revenue or the monetization comes from. But over the years, over the times, we have known that it plays like a two-sided marketplace. It's seen as a marketing platform for a lot of products and brands where they have marketing spins to advertise their products on social media, and then have some kind of targeted marketing on a certain audience, because they know that for a certain brand that this is our target audience, like people from a certain age group, from certain geographic background, buy our products, so we can have targeted marketing, and this is where we advertise. And when you see these ads and see something like, oh, this is something that I would want to buy, and it was there on my mind, but now that I see the ad, I have the same urge as a shopping website to make a click and also do a purchase. So this is why the social media websites also monetize from the revenue that the ads that they display. So there is also a flaw in this, because they also need to think how much to show organic content and how much to show ads. Because as you have known, as a popular saying, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. So I wanted to see what exactly plays into this algorithm, and how do they decide how much to keep this balance of having organic versus the ad content. One thing led to the other, and I found out that all these recommendation algorithms, they heavily rely on user behavior. So how a user behaves on these platforms, what content do they engage in, what things do they click on, all these are go into some kind of a content score and engagement score. Sorry. And this kind of interaction then plays into a content score, which then later helps this recommendation system rank this content which gets maximum engagement as the top, and then ranks according to this engagement score what you see on your feed. um, so many times you might have seen that on your social media feeds, things that are not very relevant to you but just popular because of majority appear, and they might not be very relatable, but it's just a majority rule that is getting into play. So the feeds are also created in such a way that, for example, if there is if there is all content from your own social media group. So if there are like content from your friends and family that you see, and you will start scrolling, and after like the 10th position there is just ads, you would stop scrolling. You would lose interest and then just quit after the 10th post. So the website can't afford that. And if you only see ads and then no content, then you will not even scroll. So there needs to be like a fine balance to keep you interested in the content, make you want to scroll, and also generate revenue for these websites. So this is why the you might have seen that the more the time you spend on social media, the more ads you get. So people who said like um, 3-4 hours, 5 to 10 hours, you might be seeing a lot more ads than people who just spend like half an hour. So this is possibility of making you click on something so that the media, so that the social media generates um, revenue based on the time that you're spending on their website. It's a way of monetizing with you. And for me, when this was a very interesting aspect to know, but when I looked into the socio-cultural aspect, which I often do, I also discovered that there is some kind of a bandwagon effect that these recommendations create. A bandwagon effect is basically that you do something just because everybody else is doing this. And this is very dangerous because then you have something like a FOMO on the latest trends, which is called as fear of missing out, because there is this inevitable social consequence of a majority rule. The majority decides what you see, and there is also popularity bias, which leads into reducing the quality of the content that you see, but showing you things that are more popular than what is actually good content for you. Many of the influencers, if there are any, would agree with me that making popular content is easier than making quality content. And I can give a very easy example for that. If you see a person dancing really well, uh, the major part that you would just do is scroll through the video, or even hit a like. That's the maximum that you would do. But if you see someone dancing like really funny, there is a much higher probability that you would share this video among your friends, share a laugh, and add a comment or something. And when these kinds of interaction creates this content score, then it tends to rank these kind of content in the higher areas than content which are actually good quality. And this is also because behind these recommendation engines, there are machine learning models which basically mimic human behavior, but they don't have a heart to know what is right from wrong. They don't have any context. They don't know what's happening or what's not. If you think of yourself as a machine, and if someone tells you that, uh, gives you a simple statistic like 70% of the people prefer to eat apples than to oranges, and you have to make a recommendation for the next person that comes in without any kind of context, your recommendation would be that of an apple. But what if the person is coming from different geographic location where there are no apples? What if the price of apples are much higher than, like much lesser than oranges? These are basic things which are not considered, like basic context, which are not considered when machine learning models optimize on an equation to give you recommendation. So basically, I would end my talk on a note saying that as humans, we have the responsibility to train models intelligently and not artificially. And thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya. That was very interesting, but also really scary to hear the reality behind um, how we're being used as puppets.
That's true. I mean, it's not just the first time. There have been many news articles, popular media saying how it has been misused in elections, created biases, given wrong recommendations, etc.
Yeah. So we have one question in the chat, and so Partha Sarthi is asking, what is the most important factor behind designing the most efficient recommendation system? Is it a complex, sophisticated algorithm?
Okay. So this has many aspects. If you ask what is the most efficient, like the definition of efficient would be very, very different. If you're employed as a data person working for the company would say that the most efficient for them is to maximize revenue. And for maximizing revenue, you would have to again like play into the algorithm to show so many ads or generate or promote content which might not be usually good for everybody, but might generate revenue for your company. If it is asked about like being complicated or sophisticated, there is a fine line. I don't think there needs to be a very sophisticated or complicated algorithm, but there needs to be checks if your model is going haywire, if it's creating very wrong predictions for things that are not supposed to happen. I can give an example as to there was this incident where a recommendation model was trained on data based on based on what kind of professions people do, and the game was basically what would you become when you grow up. So so girls when they played this game, they would often get recommendations of professions like nurse or any other women oriented majority based occupation. And even if their interests were in different fields like engineering or computer science, they would not get these kind of recommendations. So what goes into your data is actually much, much more important than what kind of model you build or what kind of sophisticated or complicated algorithm you do.
Yes. So following that, I had a question. So as a social media user, how would you suggest that one could be mindful of the recommendations on their feed?
Yeah, that's true. Because like as a user, there is very little that you can control what you see. But oftentimes, as we know that behind these algorithms, there are machines which basically compute some kind of equations. There are many tricks that you can do to game this machine. There are many things that happen. There are bot attacks which happen. One thing that I personally do is that when I join some kind of new social media or so, for example, when I joined LinkedIn, my feed was totally unoptimized. I would see comments and posts about things which I was not at all interested. So what I did was like I went through different data science groups, followed some people who share on data science. I interacted with posts that these people are creating. So this kind of optimization from my side gave the machine the recommendation that, oh, I am someone who is into data science and wants to follow posts or things related to this. So let's rank things which are something related to data science higher for her. And over time, it has really improved the recommendation that I've been seeing. And this is something as a user can do. If you see something very bad, which needs to be reported, there are, I think, on many websites options to even report or see things like why am I being showing this? Why am I being shown this ad or something like that? So these are small things that you can do as a user to game these machines.
So I think we're on time. So if anyone has any other questions, you can leave them in the chat or you can reach out to Aishwarya. I linked her LinkedIn profile in the chat. She also posted she also shared a link to the article that she wrote, so you can definitely check that out. So thank you so much, Aishwarya. That was a very interesting talk.